Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Teremana line of tequilas. We have the Blanco, the Reposado, and the brand new Añejo. And when I say brand new, this came out just within this week here in Texas, and I was able to pick one up yesterday. And so that's what we're doing. And yes, look at that already. Took it across the street, shared it with some friends, and they seem to really love it. So that's where we're at. On the fill level of the Añejo. But Teremana line is celebrity backed, and what I mean by that is, you know, there's that famous face behind it of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, of course, famous wrestler. But apparently now that he's, you know, not quite hitting retirement, but he wanted to focus a little more on something that he really loves, and he loves tequila, and so he started his own line. Now, Teremana, the name, kind of imparts two different things. Terra meaning the soil or the earth, and mana in the Polynesian cultures a lot of times means it talks about the spirit or the power. And so that's what we have here, Teremana line. Each of these bottled at 80 proof. Pricing on them is very reasonable. While these are both liter bottles in the Blanco and Reposado, the 750s retail pricing is about 30 for the Blanco, about 33 for the Repo, so only $3 more. And then $39 or $40 for the Añejo. So very, very reasonable. But the Añejo only comes in 750. On the back of each of these bottles, except for the Añejo, it does give a lot of details. It talks about how they're using copper pot distillations, and it talks about they're using open fermenters and brick ovens to cook the piñas. So it gives you all those details. It also talks about them being gluten-free. And beyond that, that's pretty much all it tells you. So when I started looking into this brand to do this video, the one thing I wanted to find out was, you know, which distillery is actually doing this. Because a lot of times in tequilas, you'll have a big distillery doing multiple brands. And so I wanted to see what was behind this one. So I looked it up. It's NAM 1613, and NAM is just the distillery number in Mexico. Well, 1613, when I looked it up, comes back to Teremana Distillery. I do a little more digging just to make, I'm trying to see if is it really its own distillery, or is it part of a bigger distillery, which is also becoming pretty common. And that is what the case is here. The actual big distillery there is called Productos Finos de Agave. That distillery does probably 20 or so brands coming out of it. But it also has some sub little distilleries within its, I guess, confines. And when I say that, what they're doing is they're actually creating little segments, sectioning off areas of that distillery where they're going to put in their own, maybe let's say roller mills, and they're going to put in their own copper pot stills and their own fermentation tanks so that they can have their own little distillery right there. Of course, they're going to have access probably to all the aging warehouses and so on, and that's probably the benefit there because you're going to save money that way. But whereas Productos Finos also has an autoclave, and an autoclave is and a diffuser, so that it's like a steam cooker, and then you have this big massive machine that'll actually do the whole thing, and it pumps out a lot of tequila. Diffusers do, but they don't pump out a lot of really good tequila. All right, it's going to be very cheap and expensive tequila, but all that said, that's the big distillery. That's Productos Finos. When you start sectioning off and you start doing your own thing like Teremana did, they're not using the diffuser, they're not using the autoclave, they're using the stone ovens and so on, okay? All right, now let's get to the nosing and tasting of each and every one of these. The Teremana Blanco is what we're going to start out with. Again, $30 for a 750 bottle. Oh, nice, nice, nice. So, lots of butter. Fresh floral agave. Very fruity, and when I say fruity, I'm talking very ripe golden apples, some pears, and just a little sprinkling of some red berries going on. Almost like a little cherry, a little raspberry, maybe even a little plum. But again, all these notes are just coming out of that fresh baked agave, coming out of their stone ovens, being shredded by the roller mills, being fermented, and then going into the small copper pot stills that they're using. And I always love copper pot distillations. I think they just do a little better than if you're using just stainless. Pulls out a little bit of the some of the bad notes that will come through a stainless steel. All right, here we go. Beyond that, the spice component is just a little cinnamon and a little bit of white pepper. There is a little bit of a brininess, almost like a Mediterranean olive tone coming through. And a little hint of a very light, like a sourdough bread. All right, let's go ahead and get to the tasting. Good medium viscosity. Fairly creamy. It almost hits with a nice, I'm not gonna say lactose, but it is very creamy and rich feeling on the initial hit. It feels lightly sweet. Nothing artificial. Of course, this is Blanco. They don't do that on Blancos. But there's a lot of sweetness coming out of the agave. A little citrusy tone, so you're getting lemon and lime oil in this one. Those fruits that I was picking up on the nose do come through as well. The golden apples feel a little bit, just a touch baked, almost poached on the golden apples, and pears as well. I do pick up a little more cherry aspect on the back end, a little raspberry cherry. It feels very natural, nothing artificial here. I'm real sensitive to artificial flavors. I do not like artificial flavors in any spirit. So these are feeling natural. It's feeling really nice. You do get that nice swell on the mid palate of that cinnamon, baking cinnamon, and a little bit of that white pepper. On the back end, though, you know what? There is a little bit of a black pepper as well, because you got to get that little heavier pepper kick, and it kind of lingers. So it's maybe a little white and black pepper, to be honest. Oh yeah, that's nice though. And as you can tell, I happened to buy the 1 liter, and the reason was because I like to have something on hand that I can mix with, and I feel like at this price point, and with there not really being any noticeable flaws in this tequila, and I've had 2 batches of it, and we'll talk about that a little more when I get into that Repo, because it's a little different. But the Blancos have always been pretty solid, pretty, you know, no real hard flaws or anything like that. So of the batches I've had, so I didn't feel bad about spending $35, $36 on a 1 liter. And that way, when I have friends over and let's say they want a margarita or something, I can just whip that up really quick using this. Okay. Wow, flavor is lingering pretty nicely. You do still pick up that brine. I'm still kind of chewing on that. Yeah, very, very well done on that Blanco. At $30. Okay, Teremana, the Reposado. Now, the one thing I was talking about here is Reposados, of course, can be aged almost up to a year. Of course, the second they hit a year, it becomes Añejo all the way to 3 years. So this one, I think, from what I understood, it's aged about 6 to 8 months. Okay. Vanilla is kicked up here. It's like this feels again kind of like a real natural vanilla bean. Little hint of cedar and oak. I like that about it. The fruits seem pretty similar. It's actually losing a little bit of that kind of the sourdough bread that this one had. It's losing it here. Now we're focusing a little more on the fruits. So a little more, the golden apples have now turned into almost like a red apple, baked red apple tone. Still the cherry, still the raspberry, but they're in the background just as they were a little pinch on the nose here. That's kind of what they are doing on this one. Cinnamon is much more subdued here than it was even in the Blanco, as is the pepper. There is a little bit of a sour tone going on, but it's not the sourdough bread that we're getting here. Now it's starting to turn into a little, just a whisper of apple cider, possibly apples, yeah, a little apple cider vinegar, to be honest. hint of like a roasted nuttiness going on. Okay, let's taste it and see what's going here. The butter here is turning into caramel here. The viscosity bumped up a little bit, medium, almost heading medium-high viscosity. Naturally sweet. I do not pick up any artificial sweetener here. Well, I'd say that. Hang on. If there is, there's a very minute amount on this one. And when I talk about artificial sweeteners, all I'm meaning is sometimes in tequila world, what they'll do is they'll take barrels, oak barrels that maybe held a little agave nectar in it. They'll dump out the agave nectar. They'll fill with the Blanco, let's say, and then they'll age it up. So it's going to be a little, to me, artificially sweet because of the agave nectar that it held, that's residual in the barrel. Sometimes they'll do that. And anytime you come across those real dessert style tequilas, that's pretty much what's going on. This one, let me taste it again, just double check. Okay, I'm focusing on the sweetness now. I think there's maybe a touch, maybe just a touch of it to this one. But it's not enough to really register, because it does not feel dessert style. So if you're looking for those really sweet, Clase Azul, those type notes, sweetness levels, that's not here. This feels pretty natural. But again, there's just that little whisper that makes me think maybe there's a little bit of that going on. Okay, but let's focus on the notes again. I was picking up red apples on the nose. I was picking up that apple cider vinegar. Enters, you get the caramel. You get the red apples are feeling a little baked here. A little bit of the pear, a little bit of the cherry as well. All baked down. I love the cedar component here. Love it. Because it's not just oak that can sometimes, get a little, sometimes oak can be a little tannic. It's not here. You're getting the oak representation, but then you're also getting a really nice, almost like a red cedar note right underneath it. The pepper is white pepper. It is less impactful than on the Blanco. And really it's the wood that just lingers on the back end. Some of the fruits is there. Some of the brine that was in here is lightly in here, but it's kind of lost, again, the butteriness has transformed into more caramel. There is a little bit of a kind of a toffee tone to it. Really, really like it. And for $3 more, can't beat it on the Blanco Reposado. Okay, here we go. On to the Añejo. Sometimes you'll see me shake a glass like that. It's just, it's something I do when I'm blending for St. Sally and I'm having to go through a lot of barrels or something like that. I'll just give it a quick shake. Kind of really coats the glass. It makes the spirit kind of present itself immediately. So it's something that I'm doing to pull every thing out of it that I can. If I'm at home, I'm not doing that. So if you're really sitting down and really trying to explore a spirit, you don't have to do that. You can just roll the glass. Wow. Okay. But on this one, there's some earthy tones going on. I like it. It is sweet on the nose. So I have a feeling that little touch that was going on here is bumped up on the Añejo. But here I'm getting kind of like, I don't know, how do you describe that? It's like sweet earthiness. There's a little bit of the soil component, but it feels very sweet because now you're getting that caramel that's bumping up almost into butterscotch. You're also picking up the apples, the pears, really baked. A lot of baking spices. Some mulling spices in here. You're getting a little bit of that orange oil creeping through, but now it feels a little more refined. We've lost the lemon and lime that was in this one. The butter component is back though. Wow, okay. spices, well hidden. I pick up a little cinnamon. I'm not picking up hardly any pepper on this one. Maybe just a twinge. Yeah, there's a little bit. But it's, you know, it's becoming more and more covered up with the more age that this tequila is sitting in barrels. It's kind of covering up that spice component of the pepper. All right, let's taste it. Man, I really like it. Okay, so here's the deal. It's not, I believe, this is just my going by taste, I do believe they are doing a few barrels like that. Not all the barrels like that. I think they might have some that they're using to almost, you know, when they do the batch blend, I'm guessing that they're tasting it, and maybe they're like, it could use a little bit, just a touch, and they go get some of the agave barrels, right, and that have the tequila in it, and maybe they use a couple of those. I don't know how big their batches are, but that's just what I'm guessing, because there's a little bit of that in here. But just like it was here, very light-handed, which I actually like, because when you start getting that really syrupy tequilas where they're just really sweet, it starts getting too much. It's, you know, I get it. Sometimes, you know, after dinner, you know, they're trying to reel in some of the cognac, you know, the crowd, and so you go with a little sweeter tequila. I can see where it has its place, but I'm glad they didn't go, you know, full heavy-handed there. Wow, there's a lot of vanilla bean rolling on the back end. Okay, here we go. Back on the notes. Medium high viscosity here. Very rich. The agave is well represented. I have some tequilas, especially dessert style, where they can start getting a little muddy and covered up. Here the agave is the star still. Lots of vanilla. Brown sugar. Again, the toffee note that's here, it's just amplified onto the añejo, as is the oak and cedar. The oak and cedar is still here. It's a little bolder. It lasts a little longer. The sweetness level is bumped up a touch more onto the añejo than the reposado. But the fruit component is very similar. That's the one thing I do like about this line, is that everything that you pick up in the Blanco, you'll pick up in the reposado. Maybe the olives and the butter is a little more converted into caramel, and then you're starting to see it turn into a little more butterscotch here onto the añejo. But the cedar aspect from the Repo to the añejo is still the same. The oak is still the same, and it's just getting amplified. Pepper is still in here on the añejo. I'm picking up on the back end a little more. It's almost like a little bit of black pepper here. So we're a little more white pepper with a pinch of black. And now we're getting into the black pepper zone on the añejo. That sweet earthy tone that I was picking up on the nose comes through on the palate. And it's just a really nice minerality is what it is. Good minerality. You get that little bit of mint coming on to kind of join in with that. Again, butterscotch, brown sugar, pears, apples, raspberries, cherries, baked down, really cooked down. So you're not getting to me, I'm not getting the sugars from the fruit, I'm getting the flavors of the fruit. The sugar component that I'm picking up here, it just feels like a very sweet cedar, sweet earthiness. That's the component that I focus on, that I feel like when I'm tasting it, that's what I'm picking up on. There's also, wow, what is that? Oh, okay. Again, if you've ever had piñon wood, that's an aspect that I'm picking up on the añejo on the very back end. So I guess in summary, the one thing I'll say about the Teremana line is I think for the price to quality ratio, it's a superb buy. You know, $30 for a 750 of Blanco, $33 for the Repo, and $39 for the Añejo. For a tequila line that is not flawed, I'm not picking up any negatives on any of them. I think it's a pretty solid line. I hope it continues to maintain this quality level. I do know that there is very slight batch variance, and the reason I know this, and I meant to talk about it when I was reviewing the Reposado there, was because my neighbors across the street, they love this tequila. And she doesn't like a lot of tequilas, but she really loved this tequila line. And so she shared it with my wife, and then my wife's like, you need to come taste this tequila. So I was like, all right. So I go over there, I taste the Blanco, taste the Reposado, and I was like, wow, pretty solid. You know, a lot of, again, celebrity endorsed stuff, a lot of times I'm just like, unless I hear something really good about it, I don't usually buy into, you know, that type of marketing. But once I tasted these, and I tasted a little bit of a tropical aspect on the Reposado that she had, it was like a little mango, a little papaya. I loved it. And so I ran out and picked up these bottles. And while I don't pick up those notes on this batch, again, I'm not picking up any flaws. So overall, I'm happy with the line. I think at $30 to $40, it's a solid line to have in your bar. And again, you can mix with it, or you can even sip it neat if you want to. It works great all around. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video review. As always, I thank each and every one of my patrons and YouTube viewers. Of course, if you want to get this video ad-free and 2 weeks early, join me over at patreon.com/LiquorHound. Or again, keep leaving all the great comments and views here on YouTube. I love each and every one of my viewers. Thank you as always for being here with me, and cheers.